I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Now this is a video I didn't think I was going to be making, but the other day when me and Lauren were on our way back from the Lake District, my Fiesta ST started misfiring again. Now I've had issues with it misfiring in the past. The first time it was a injector and that was still covered under warranty, luckily. And then the second time I've had misfiring issues with this car, it was the same injector last year, so I changed that and it's been running sweet ever since. Until the other day, started misfiring quite badly, so I pulled over at the side of the road and I just assumed it was another injector that was pissing fuel into the cylinder. However, this isn't the case. Matey boy from the AA whacked out one of the coil packs and yeah, there's a picture of that. Then we had a look at the spark plug and that was just loose, so I'm not quite sure how that's come loose, but really gutting. Anyway, I won't bore you with the story. It was meant to be a 4.5 hour journey home, but it ended up taking us 16 hours with the AA. And that pretty much brings you guys up to date. So I've had a look down where the spark plug number 4 goes and the thread is knackered. Here's a couple of pictures. Really not happy, worst case scenario, and I'm not quite sure what has caused this. The car is regularly serviced by myself. I'm a mechanic by trade. And yeah, somehow the spark plug has come loose. So I'm going to dive straight into this one. It's not something that I wanted to do, not something that I saw coming, but I'm going to document it for YouTube. This isn't going to be a how-to video, but I will be bringing you guys in with frequent updates and showing you the progress as we go along. Let's get started and remove this cylinder head.
Perfect.
Thought I'd just jump in with a quick little update. I've been at it disconnecting all the loom and starting to take bits off of the head. I've got the inlet manifold all off. I've also removed the alternator to give me a bit more room. I'm now going to start working on getting the engine timed up. I need to remove the engine mount. I also need to remove the exhaust manifold. Not sure if I've got to take the turbo off with it or not. So yeah, it's all going well, just taking me time. And yeah, let's try and get a little bit more progress done. I've made quite a bit more progress. Locked up the cams up here. There's a pin down the bottom to lock up the crank. For extra measures, we've got another timing tool here to lock up the cams. I've stripped down all of this side of the engine as well. It's getting there now. I've just got 2 stubborn injectors that I need to get out. I'm going to remove the timing belt and then start to remove the cams. It's been about a week now since I've worked on the Fiesta ST. I've just been sourcing parts, getting the head skimmed and rebuilt. So let's get you all up to speed with what's going on. Now I've got my old cylinder head off. I thought it was about time I showed you the damage in full detail. So from what I can gauge through talking to people about these cylinder heads is that they crack where the spark plug hole is, and this is very common on the Fiesta ST heads. I've read online that people uprate these heads even with the cracks by the spark plugs. They brag and boast and say that they've put bigger cams in them and whatnot with these cracks in, and they'll go on for thousands of miles even when they've been mapped up to like stage 3 and they're getting so much pressure put on the heads. But then on the other scale of things, some people are very worried about these cracks and they say it does do damage, which I have found they do. So as you can see with mine, what has happened is the crack has continued from the base of where the spark plug sits and followed up into the threads, which has then caused the spark plug to come loose and then obviously do all of that damage. And if I go and look at another one of my spark plug holes, number 1, I can see there as well there's a crack forming and it's starting to go up all of the thread as well. So it wouldn't have been long before that one became loose and then done more damage to the thread. Now I did think of getting this spark plug hole helicoiled or an insert put in, but I went to a couple of machine shops and they said it's not possible on these engines because there's a taper on the spark plug hole. So I knew from the start I needed a new cylinder head. So now knowing that I needed a new cylinder head, I got in contact with Chris, the car builder, who's also on YouTube, because I remember he had a cylinder head that he was giving away a couple of days previous. So I went and picked that up and I couldn't believe my luck. It still had all the valves in it and the springs. It just was missing the caps, these little buckets that sit on top of the springs and the valves, which go up and down when the cam lobes turn around. So what my plan was to strip Chris's old heads completely, take all the valves out and everything, and then put all of my valves, my caps and my cams into his heads. But the problem occurred when I found out that you can't swap stuff on these heads. So I'm guessing you could probably swap the valves and the springs around, but these caps, or the buckets, whatever you want to call them, they're not interchangeable. I can't put one of these buckets and put it on his. Now the reason I can't do this is because of the precision that they've been machined to at factory. It just won't allow me to put my buckets into his head without causing serious damage. So at this point I've done a lot of research and luckily I've got his head for free, but the bloke at the engineering shop said, look, you need to get a complete new head to put on your car. So that leads me to the third cylinder head. This is one I purchased on Facebook Marketplace for 300 quid. It came with injectors and all the cams as well. Now the first thing I'd done was got in contact with Chris at Clump Fab, and I asked him to relap the valves, change the oil stem seal valves and give the head a light skim. So he's done all of that, as well as a good thorough clean. So yeah, this one is ready to go. It came with all the valves, I've got new oil seals in it, came with all the buckets and the cams to suit. So yeah, this is what I'm going to be fitting to the ST. But yeah, it was just a really unfortunate discovery. I thought I could swap all of the internals from my old cylinder head into Chris's one, but apparently that is not the case. So now that little saga's over and I've got a cylinder head to put on the ST, I'm going to be cracking on with doing that. It's going to take me a couple of days. I've ordered a load more parts for the Fiesta ST, gaskets, timing belt, head bolts, head gasket, you name it, I've got loads. So I'll walk you through bits and bobs when I'm putting it back together. So here is the block and the head gasket. Everything is all good here. I just need to give it a thorough clean before I put the new head gasket on. So I'm just going to do that now. That's a huge improvement on the surface of the block. Really happy with how it's come out. I just used a wire brush very lightly on the top here, and I've also hoovered out all of the bores. Just made sure there's no more crud sitting around, but yeah, it's all nice and clean now. Now you'll find when I'm rebuilding this engine, some parts I've got pattern, but some parts I've went back to the main dealer to get, and this is one of the things that I knew I had to get from the main dealer, which is a head gasket. Part number is there. I wasn't gonna skimp out of this. I knew I needed the proper head gasket for the engine. The new head gasket was only like 25 or 30 pounds, so yeah, it's well worth getting that. I've got my old one up here just to refer to, but that's round the right way, so I can place this on now. It's also got like a couple of little tabs that point out here. They go onto that dale. I don't think I showed you guys yet, but that is the surface of the heads that's been skimmed by Chris. Really nicely done. The new head is now on top of the block, and I've got a big box here which is full of new head bolts. I didn't go genuine with these ones, but as long as they're new head bolts, they should do the job, no problems at all. Right, that's the head now bolted down. I used a sequence that I found online on my technical data platform. You just have to work your way out, and then they have to go up. It's like 5 Newton meters, then 15 Newton meters, and then I think it was 30, and then you have to do 90 degrees on all of them, then you have to do another 90 degrees on them. But that's all the bolts torqued down. I was a bit worried about swapping cams over because of the timing and that, but what I've done is I've put my old cams back in my old head, and I'm just copying the way they look. So I've got the timing tool in there, and this is how they're all laid out in my old head, so I know this is going to be timed up. I'm going to add a bit of oil in here before I fit all the caps, but all of these caps will have a sequence as well, so I'm going to bung it back on time lapse and get these cams built up with the sprockets on the end as well. It's been raining all morning and it's finally started to ease off. What I've done is remove the starter motor and put a locking tool in there to lock the flywheel while I undo the crank pulley, because it's going to be really tight and I don't want all of that strain to be on the little lock-in pin that I've got at the back of the crank. Another quick little update, I've now got the crank pulley off. It was so hard to remove, it was just jammed on there. Even when the bolt was removed, it was rock solid, so me and Dad in the end had to get a pry bar either side and wiggle it off. It took me the best part of an hour to get it off. Unfortunately and inevitably, there was some slight damage on the pulley when we removed it. I've also damaged the crank pickup ring as well, so I've got a new one of these on order, and the sprocket as well I've got on order. Bit annoying, but it's alright, I can get the parts and they can be replaced. In the process of removing the bottom crank pulley, I also removed the old water pump, so I'm gonna clean up this whole area and then fit the new water pump, fit the sprockets back, probably torque them up. Here's the new water pump, comes with a gasket and a set of new bolts, which is always nice. Let's get this fitted.
Perfect.
New crank pulley and crank pulley sprocket gear is here, so let's get them both fitted and get this timing belt on as well. I've been cracking on, I've got the timing belt now on, the tensioner is on, and I've released the pin, so that's all tensioned up, and I've just torqued up the crank pulley. torque settings for this were 100 Newton meters, so I'd done that. Then it was 90 degrees. Now I'm working with not a lot of room, so all I'd done is I'd done a Tipex mark right at the top. Then once this square rotated round, I knew that that was 90 degrees. No, then just a further 15 degrees. So as you can see, that has just gone past 90 degrees, and I give it a little smidge more, which was a 15 degrees. So have a quick little progress update, because I know I'm whizzing ahead with this, just trying to get it all back together. I've done all the little bits and bobs in this area. Vacuum pump, there's like a water rail, all the multi-plugs and whatnot, they're all back together. I've also just put on the exhaust manifolds with a new gasket, and a new gasket going onto the turbo as well. And I've just been fitting the cam cover, loads of bolts, new gasket for that as well. I've just plugged in some of the sensors that I removed as well. Now I'm just going to start to build up the front end of the engine, get the alternator on, inlet manifolds. I've got the inlet manifold on now, I've got the alternator on, I put the idler on and the tensioner down there, and I've waxed the aux belt back on. I've just now put the engine mount back on, and I'm going to start to plug in all this wiring. Sort of loops around here and goes down into the back of the engine towards the exhaust, and then I'm just going to start plumbing it in. These are the parts I've got left, so a couple of boost pipes, intake pipe, heat shield for the exhaust manifolds, and then yeah, just header tank, another cover, and I've got to put the injectors in, spark plugs in, coil packs, and then we should be good to go. I've got a new hydraulic lifter. It's like I think it's called a fuel tappet. I've also purchased a new O-ring which is in there, so yeah, just gonna whack that on the side of that, and then I'll get the fuel tappet put in. And yeah, still got one of the intake hoses to put on, but that goes over the top here, so yeah, I'll be putting that on in a minute. People always mention on the ST forum to change your fuel tappet bucket. This is my old one, it's done 80,000 miles, and that is the new one on the right hand side. That looks a lot better, doesn't it? So all the engine is completely back together now. All the plugs are plugged in, pipes are done up. But the only thing that's left to do is I'm going to drain the engine oil and replace the filter because there's probably fuel in the oil and whatnot. I'm also going to top up the coolant, and I'm going to refill the gearbox full of oil because that had to drain when we removed the drive shaft. It's all systems go now. I've drained the oil, changed the oil filter. I've just filled it up with oil. It takes 4 litres plus 0.5 of a litre. So I've done that. I've topped the coolant up, but that's going to need to be bled all the way through anyway. And I'm just about to top up the gearbox oil. It goes just down there. There's a little filler bung that you need to remove, and it takes 1.7 litres of gear oil. Right, that is all the fluids now re-topped up. I used OP oils as per. The driveway is a mess. Lauren's out here watching the turn of the key. Well, I say turn of the key, it's keyless. But yeah, I've done everything, so let's see if she starts up. Nice one, cheers. You guys would have already seen the engine was starting and ran, but it was really lumpy. I assumed it was another misfire, so I started messing about with the coil packs and the injectors again. But when changing them around, done nothing. I thought I'd wait and get the diagnostic tool from work. So I just brought it back this evening. It flagged up accelerator pedal sensor A and B. So I unplugged the one in the car, but that made no difference, and it come up D and E, so I knew it was definitely not that sensor. So I started looking at the throttle body and had a right old feel under here, and there's a multi-plug that I left off. Anyway, I've removed some of the boost pipes and plugged the multi-plug back in, so let's see if it runs. I've just gone back on my diagnostic equipment and all the codes have now cleared, so let's hope it runs properly. Yes! What a mission that turned out to be. So the Fiesta ST is now fully rebuilt and running again. I have been driving the car for a week or so now and it's faultless. Touch wood. It was really satisfying tackling the job myself. I was doing it after work most evenings, so the video you've just watched is filmed over a couple of weeks because I was just making progress and fixing the ST as and when I had time. And I even learnt a few things along the way, which is always good. You would have already seen that I replaced the timing belt as well. Because the car's done over 80,000 miles, it would have been silly for me to put the old timing belt back on. So yeah, that was all replaced and refreshed whilst the head was apart. I did end up spending quite a lot of money on parts in the end. The cylinder head was £300. I bought loads of new gaskets and that. I didn't mention half of them in this video. I also bought all fresh fluids from OP oils. So I had to spend a little bit of money on this rebuild, but I'm just glad the ST is up and running again. And to conclude, the fate for the Fiesta ST has now been decided. I am going to sell it. I've had nothing but problems with this. I did say in the intro, I had 2 injectors fail on me before, and now I've had this spark plug thread issue and cracked cylinder head. So yeah, it's going now. It's had its time and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't want any other car at the moment. There's no car that I think, oh, I definitely want to get that next. Although saying that, I have already purchased a replacement. Should I give you a little clue so you can discuss what you reckon it is in the comment section below? Something completely off the topic, but I need to tell you guys that I'm hosting my 2nd ever annual classic car gathering. It's at the Orange Tree in Hitchin, Hertfordshire. It starts at 11 o'clock on the 8th of May. It's a Monday, bank holiday Monday, because it's the King's coronation. So yeah, we all get an extra bank holiday. And also, if you haven't got a classic car, you're more than welcome to come. But please, can I ask, if you've got a non-classic car, can you park at the front of the pub, and at the rear of the pub, that'll be for all of the classic cars. whilst we're waffling a little bit in this outro, I just want to give a massive thank you to all my subscribers and people that support me, because we've just reached 10,000 subscribers on the channel. It's mind-blowing. I would have never dreamt that I could achieve this goal, and yeah, without you guys watching the videos, it would have never been made possible. So thank you for the support. I hope to continue giving you guys loads of content on YouTube for years to come. So yeah, roll on the next big achievement. Lots of people have been asking about the escort content. Don't worry, I'll be working on that again very soon. It's just, this is my daily car and I need it to get to and from work. So I've been focusing all my time on this. Next week, I'm going to get straight back in the garage and get that escort done. If you did enjoy the video, please give it a like. And if you like what you see, subscribe to the channel to see more. Thank you all for watching, and until the next one, I'll see you guys later.